So you're wondering, how much house can you afford on a $70,000 salary here in Alberta? Well, you're in the right place. So the average weekly income in Alberta as of, I believe, December 2023 was $1,290 per week. You spread that out across the year and it's about $67,000 per year. So there's a lot of people who are making $70,000 per year in Alberta. And ironically enough, we actually have a viewer who also emailed in and wanted us to kind of figure out how much they could afford, and their household income is $140,000. So I'm assuming both of them are roughly making about $70,000. So today we're gonna look at two scenarios. We're gonna look at how much does $70,000 get you and how much does $140,000 get you. And just because the bank is saying that you should actually purchase this, does that actually mean you can or should? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. So when we look at this mortgage calculator that we put together, I was inspired by a few YouTubers who do a lot in the US, and they have something very similar to this. And this is made for Canada, because we're different up here, eh? In the information that we want to put in, right here is actually where you insert your personal income. So if you're making about $70,000 a year, you break that out to about $5,800 per month, but that's before taxes. And when we look at taxes roughly, it's about 30 to 32% is what taxes are here. So take home is roughly $4,025 per month on that $70,000 income. The bank actually says that this individual can afford up to $250,000 as a mortgage. Now, so this breaks out to roughly, so the total mortgage is right here at $248,000. So if they end up buying 270, so 250, so it's kind of like a 269 purchase price is right in there, because the principal mortgage plus the CMHC cost is what the total amount is. And so this individual has 10% down. They got $26,000. We're looking at a 5.39% interest rate, because as of today, that is roughly what that 5-year fixed is. And this is not getting into should you go variable, should you go fixed, what should you take, how many years should you take? That's for other conversations, but we're gonna go off of the 5.39 just to make it simple. We're going off of 25-year amortization. And we're also looking at, because in this price range, you're gonna be mainly looking for condos. So roughly $300 condo fees, your monthly property tax, about $1,200 a year, which is about $100 a month, and your insurance premium for the year around $800 to $900 or so. So when you look at this, the actual mortgage payment is $1,507. And when you look at the total cost, including all the other monthly expenses in there, you're actually sitting at $1,974.29. So this actually seems pretty decent, right? But when the banks are looking at things, they have two rules. They have your GDS and your TDS, which is your gross debt servicing ratio and your total debt servicing ratio. I'm not gonna get into any more deeper than that, but what they do is it's a way that they can look at and qualify you. So the CMHC on their website has said that your housing costs shouldn't be more than 32% of your gross income. Housing costs, including mortgage principal and interest, taxes, heating expenses, and half of your condo fees. So that is the idea that you want to go for. Now, when you talk to a lot of mortgage brokers, talk to a lot of banks, they're actually able to, and a lot of them actually use 39% off of the gross debt servicing ratio. So at 39%, a lender with this type of individual will say this person can afford $2,275 per month going towards the cost of their property. So, okay, well that seems great. So now you got qualified and you can actually afford $250,000 of mortgage. And so, but can you actually afford that? Because at the end of the day, there are some other ways to look at this. If you look at gross versus net, gross is something is the bigger number, net is like after taxes. So what you have in your hand is what we're calling net. So after tax dollars is what I want to compare, because that's the dollars that you have in your hand to use every month as you're going through and living with this property that you have purchased. Anywhere from 25 to 45% of your net take home should not be more than what your total mortgage costs are, including, the heat, insurance, property taxes, and so on. But when you look at this number, this is sitting at 49%. So we're not even at 45% right here. So the only thing that we can really adjust in here, because insurance is what it is, property taxes are there, condo fees, this will be different once we actually find the right property that we're going to compare and look at. But it's really just the purchase price. So if we go down to 240, actually it still doesn't even do it. So actually the notes over here, it says 235. So we got to go to 235. And now we've turned that green. And to go all the way down to 35%, it actually is a purchase price of $175,000. Actually, not even. Oh, wait, but remember we had $26,000 down payment, so we might be able to bump this up. There you go. Okay, so now that made that green. And so now to own something that is net 35% of your take home, you now have to purchase something for $175,000 with 15% down. And that ends up kind of becoming what it is. But we're in Calgary. Can you find anything for $175,000? That's kind of the problem here. Let's actually see what we can find for $175,000. So if I go here and I say 160 to 180, and we look at active, we're looking across the whole province here actually. Let's go to the map and let's see what we can come up with. So there are only a handful of places that are like 1-bedroom properties, 800 square feet. This one's 169. So, I mean, there are a few options, but it looks like there's only 3 in Calgary. At the end of the day, going this low might not work if you're wanting to be in Calgary. So let's go back to the 235. Now we know that you can afford more property than what that is in the terms of the mortgage. So this mortgage now is only $218. You put 10% down, you've got an extra probably $3,000 or so from the original scenario. But when you actually break down life, so this is what I want to look at, because just because we go up here and say, okay, well, let's up that budget because now at least we're 45% of what our net is, what is this going to look like in terms of actual living costs? Now, the ideal rule that we want to go for is 50, 30, 20. So the needs in your life should be about 50%. The wants in your life should be about 30%. And your savings should be about 20%. And as you can see here, the needs, when you're purchasing a property and you have this high of a monthly cost, they're kind of eating up everything because you're actually at 73% of the total net take home instead of trying to get to 50. And if we were to get to 50, I don't know what we would cut here really. To move down into other areas, especially into savings, because that's important, especially investments too. So maybe there's a way you can get your car paid off, right? Lower that. Your insurance will always be there. You're going to need a cell phone, groceries, eat less. I don't know. That's not really an option. So we're pretty minimal here, but the mortgage itself is taking up a lot. So let's take a look and see how much property you can find for $235,000 specifically in Calgary. So let's say you want to try to live kind of more inner city. You don't want to go out to the suburbs way up north or way down south, and you want to try to stay inner city. Well, there are some options around Bridgeland. I mean, this property here is 597 square feet for $220 right now. You've got a place over here, 650 for $234. Over probably a Banff Trail. I mean, this is on 16th Ave. That's going to be really loud. I wouldn't suggest that. You got a 300 square foot 0-bedroom place in the Brynwood Towers. I suggest that's not an option. And here we've got 2 places in Dalhousie. So 239, 233, they're both about 700 square feet. The tax amount per year is $966 and the condo fees are $557. So that really changes the way that we are looking at things. So you got a $550 condo fee, and taxes were $966. So that's go to about $80 a month. Yeah, so let's do that. And they're asking $233 right now. So let's go to $233. Looking at 10% down. Yeah, so this actually even makes things tighter. This is a little bit, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to look at this because now you've got 233. It's an older condo, but those condo fees can really eat into a cost. So buying a property at $70,000 of an income can be a little bit of a challenge. And when we start looking across the province, again, people are moving to Alberta for Alberta, but at the same time too, there's people from Calgary who also want to purchase. I mean, you have a 4-bedroom, actually looks like a mobile, but it's in Strathmore. If you go down south, I don't think there's anything popping up in Okotoks. I mean, some of these places are pretty rural. And so down in Lethbridge, I mean, here's a 850 square foot detached house for $233. So, I mean, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Red Deer, these places are kind of all around Calgary, and they're much smaller centers, probably anywhere from 70 to maybe 200,000 people at the top end. But truth be told, they're great little towns if that's what you're looking for. If affordability is that important and everything is tight and there's no options, and there's no options for more income, there's no options for more down payment or more savings, then sometimes moving out to other areas is kind of what you need to do. So I'm not showing this to be discouraging. I want this to be encouraging, because sometimes knowing the truth and knowing numbers and knowing exactly where you're at allows you to kind of create a plan. So let's take a look at the $140,000 because that might feel a little bit different. So we got an email and they said, "Thank you so much, Jared. We love your YouTube channel and the videos have helped us a lot to give us an idea of what we want. And to answer your questions," because I was emailing them back and forth, they said, "For the budget, we're not sure how much the bank will give us, but we both work full-time and our annual household income is $144,000. We have approximately $90,000 to $105,000 for down payment that we've saved up, and I'm expecting something around the $600,000 or possibly $700,000 range if possible, and I'd like a detached house is what we're aiming for." So this is what they sent in. And I want to look and see. Let's see if this makes sense for them. The bank actually can approve them if they have zero debt, all that kind of good stuff, very simple, for $560,000 mortgage. So if they've got around $90,000 to $100,000 down, that's roughly a $660,000, $650,000 type purchase. There are no condo fees when you're looking at detached properties. However, your property taxes are a lot more and your insurance is a lot more. So in this situation, the bank is saying their 39% ratio is $4,500 a month. So if you look at their income, $140,000 per year is about $11,600 per month, but you take taxes off of that, it's about $8,050 per month that is take home to them and their family. Now, I actually don't know if these people have a child or not. I'm going to assume they have one kid for when we're going through the numbers. But again, when you actually look at these net ratios, 45%, it just doesn't work. And like I said in the notes here, it says 585. So if we adjust down to 585, now we are turning this green. And we're at $3,600 a month for the total cost. Can we actually up their payment? See, now if they stretch to 20% to get rid of CMHC, they're at $117,000 for a down payment there. So that might be a little bit high, so we'll just keep it at 15. But here's a little tip. If you're in this scenario where you have to adjust your purchase price, but you have extra cash, don't just go and spending that on couches. Take that cash and you can actually do a lump sum down payment on your principal mortgage. This is what I would suggest they would do, is keep that down payment, put down as much as they want, but then do some lump sum to get rid of the mortgage quicker. But now, when we're down to 585, how does this play out in terms of their ratios? Well, again, very quickly, and I've adjusted this a little bit. I mean, utilities are more, groceries will be more because it's more people. They might have a bigger car payment of $450. Cell phone might be a little bit more for more people again. They might have childcare. I'm assuming, let's say they have an elementary age, so it's after school childcare, something like that. But that's 75% when we want to aim for 50% of the needs that we have in our life coming from our net monthly income. And so down here for clothing, subscriptions, entertainment, future travel, and putting savings and investments away. So in this scenario, it's actually putting less. I mean, there is $300 left over that could be put into some of these areas. I personally would want to make sure that some of the savings and investments are put in there. So let's go to 400 here. And for entertainment, maybe it's 300 for the family. So now we have $12 left for the monthly budget, but it doesn't necessarily work. So I can see why this is frustrating for some people. I mean, it is, we have our own family and we're always going through these things too. But it's very interesting when you're going through this scenario, trying to figure out how much you can afford. Just because, again, the bank says you can afford it doesn't mean you should afford it. And I think that's really valuable information, because the type of property at 585 compared to 640, but also compared to, on the other end, to get down to this 35% of your net is 430. That's a $200,000 difference. So you're going from kind of maybe a 1,500 square foot detached property in Calgary all the way down to small townhouses. And so those are very, very big differences in what you are getting for your dollar right now. And so if we quickly take a look at 585, what are they going to find in Calgary and then surrounding areas? 387 options in that price range, and they are all across the province. There's lots of options, but again, you have to want to live where you want to live. If affordability and getting the best property for that price is where you're looking at, I mean, it's starting to look like Calgary isn't always the best option because of the increase in prices. But let's see what you can get in some of the north and south pockets of the city. So here is 1,000 square foot down in Mackenzie for $568. It's active right now. Over here, this is in Palliser, a 1,300 square foot house for $550. You go up north, I'm assuming this is Arbor Lake, so kind of a starter home of $1,344 is priced at $589. So you can kind of get an idea of some of these options. Coventry is a 800 square foot, but that's kind of a split bi-level type thing, so it actually would feel a lot bigger than 800 square feet. Like in Hidden Valley, 560, 1,100 square feet. So this is kind of what you're gonna find for this family. And this might be what they're okay with if there's 3 of them. However, the needs is sitting still at 74% of the net take home compared to the goal of having 50%. So a lot of our needs are taking up a lot of our cash in our world. And I'm not showing you this to discourage you. I truly believe this needs to be encouraging, because when you have the answers and when you have the knowledge of the numbers, you now have choices and decisions to make. So some of those choices can be, how do I have bigger income? How do I make a difference in what's coming in? How do I cut my costs? How do I make sure some of this debt is gone? How do I prepare for a purchase to make sure it's the right thing for our family? So be encouraged by this. And I do not want you to blindly go and purchase a property just because the bank says you can, because we don't do that. And that's not you. That is not what you do. You look at the numbers. And if this has been helpful, then you should probably watch another video. I don't know what I was gonna say, which video, sorry. Maybe this one over here. He thought he could not buy a property, but go find out and see if he actually can.